By the way, including being with Andrea Fisher-Newman at the Michigan game on Saturday, we ran into Daniel Howes, who was there, too, watching this rout, essentially, of Bowling Green. And Daniel Howes is the business columnist and associate business editor for the Detroit News. Good morning.
Good morning.
Well, what did you think of the big house and the facility?
Pretty phenomenal. I hadn't been to the big house for, 15 years, and at that point I was just sitting down in one of those seats, if you call them that. They're pretty small.
Yeah.
So it'd been a long time since I'd been there. It was very impressive facility. The boxes, the press box, the broadcast booth, and good sight lines. And I suspect that there's going to be more. I wouldn't be surprised to see them actually fill in either the north end and the south end bowls with more bleachers at some point.
Wow, wouldn't that be something? I mean, here we are at just about 110,000, the biggest stadium in the nation, one of the biggest in the world. And the frightening stat that I saw last week during the game is that the biggest stadium in the world is in North Korea. It's called May Day Stadium, and it holds 250,000 people.
Yeah, well, let them have that.
I guess. They're not having as much fun as we are. I know that.
That's exactly right. I think their meaning of big house is probably something different in North Korean.
Yeah, really, the little box.
Yeah, exactly.
It's funny you mentioned how small the seats were at Michigan Stadium because they basically give you a postage stamp number to sit on, and you get less leg room than an airline. But I went to the edge of the box to look down on the seats to see if they looked a little bit wider, if the numbers were painted a little wider, like they say they have been. And it occurred to me that now you can see all the liquor bottles on the left on the sidewalk in between the seats from high above.
Yeah, I guess.
Ladies should know, by the way, if you go to the Michigan State game, which is in Ann Arbor or anywhere, if you're coming from Petoskey or Traverse City or Grand Rapids, you cannot take a purse into the game at all. So they'll stop you at the gate. That's something we'll talk about as we get closer. Let me ask you just a little bit of politics, if I could, this morning. The poll that I'm looking at from Politico and George Washington University says only 38% of those asked say Obama deserves to be reelected. 44% say they're going to vote against him. That's without even an opponent being presented, just on the idea. What do you make of that stat?
Well, I'm not surprised. I think this economy and this recession is getting very long in the tooth, and people are very weary and suspicious of what this administration is doing and this Congress are doing. So I'm not at all surprised, and I think the president is showing a fairly remarkable ability not to connect with folks. We saw it last week in that town hall, and we've seen it in other cases, so it doesn't surprise me at all. I mean, at the end of the day, the economy, whether it performs or doesn't perform, is ultimately going to be laid at the feet of the top guy. And the longer you're in power, the more likely people are going to hold you accountable for it.
Well, that top guy is going to be with Governor Granholm today at the White House. He's signing that small business bill. It's supposed to help small businesses create jobs, free up a little bit of money. Apparently, part of that bill is based on Michigan's supplier diversification program. But all the small business people that I talk to very regularly on this program say it's not the government that's going to entice them to expand their business. It's going to be the need and some kind of stability that shows them that their investment won't be lost. I mean, is this bill much ado about nothing?
Well, I think it's another example of treating the symptoms and not the disease. And it, to my way of thinking and what I see, the disease is the instability, is the uncertainty of where the economy is going, what costs are going to be like for business, and also for individuals, which is impacting demand, which also impacts business. I mean, they're going to hire more and expand more when they feel that they're going to have more customers, whether they're selling to retail customers or they're selling to other businesses. So continually targeting programs, for government programs, I think, at sectors of the business community is not going to get it done. It's a lot more about the environment and the business environment in general that is going to be a lot more effective, I think, and I think a lot of other people think, in getting business off a dime.
Well, to that degree, too, I read in your blog you're not nuts about this film tax credit. 42% is costing the state a lot of money, isn't it?
Well, it is, but I wax back and forth on that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you can make the argument that, but not for the tax, the film taxes, you wouldn't have a lot of ancillary spin-off in the communities where they are actually filming these episodes and these movies.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, you have to spend a little to get a little, and the truth is that if we're not doing it, somebody else is. And it's the same old game in the same incentive argument, no matter what you're talking about. Other people play the game, and you can sit on the sidelines and be pure about it, and you're not going to get the business. And the truth of the matter is Michigan needs to do whatever it can to get additional business, because in general the business environment, as I just was talking about, has not been positive. I talked to a CEO over the weekend whose company is kind of repositioning itself after some very difficult times earlier in the decade. And we started talking about expansion, and he said essentially, Michigan better get its act together, because of the way it's been operating, it's not going to attract any jobs. And, despite the fact that he's been digging his company out, he's been paying attention to these things. And in fact, after we were done, he emailed me a new survey that said that Michigan ranked 49th out of 50 states in business attraction. And it is what it is. It has to do with environment and whether businesses want to invest here or not.
Which state is worse, California?
Actually, I think it was 48th, California and New York.
Oh, boy. As the business columnist for the Detroit News, have you seen the Wall Street sequel yet?
I have not.
Are you eager to see that?
Yes, I am. My wife and I were actually laughing about it when we saw a trailer, because we saw the first Wall Street when we were dating. And or at least that's what she says. I don't know that I remember that's exactly what happened, but the timing is right. Yeah. So it must be the case. Yes, I do want to see it.
Well, it was #1 at the box office this weekend, and congratulations on having a marriage that has outlasted Gordon Gekko going to prison and coming back out. And
that's right, and I think it will continue to last.
Well, good for you, and we'll look forward to your comments on the new Wall Street movie, and we'll read about it, perhaps in your blog at the Detroit News, and, of course, in his columns on Tuesday and Thursday in the Detroit News. Daniel Howes, Associate Business Editor for DebtNews.com and the Detroit News. Michael Patrick Shields, 35 after the hour.